Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Immersive Podcast. I am your host, Tyler, as always. And today we have a guest, special guest, again, as always, Sam Kabert. He is a keynote speaker, an author, and a breathwork coach, and an expert in breathwork. He's been doing breathwork for a very long time, and I'm sure he can share some wisdom with us on something that a lot of us we've talked about in the past. It's something that I practice along with meditation. So happy to be here with Sam today. How are you doing today, Sam?
Thank you so much, Tyler, for having me on the pod and looking forward to seeing where this takes us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always good to just mix energies. And I think it's a blessing just get to mix energies with so many different people who have so many different gifts and different perspectives and, places. I always kind of say like places within there's no one little box. We all have a spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, of course, affiliate sponsors, I always like to give you guys a shout out right away and just let you know that we're so grateful for you. Gaia TV, very new working with you. So, as I've been saying, I cannot wait to see what we can accomplish together in the future. Unified TV, we're not competing. We can watch both. There's a free link. A free trial and link in the bio, and you get a discounted price. If you use the year subscription option, you get free access to all their live events. And the other company that I always shout out is GFL Clothing. We're in their Blue Lotus shirt right now. They're amazing. Doton and Tavel, check out their episode. I'll link it in the bio. Myself, Jane, Doton and Tavel, the founders of GFL. We did an episode earlier this year. They're the founders of GFL Clothing for light workers, responsibly sourced, sustainable. They pay attention to things like frequency in the fabrics, not mixing wool and linen, etc., etc. And also rather fashionable. There's a lot of styles, a lot of different stuff that I think you've probably seen some people that you might follow, maybe fans of, and you didn't know it was GFL. So shout out to those guys. And if you would like, go to Tyler33 and you get a free hat if you choose. That's all the promo stuff I got for you right now. So let's dive in with Sam. Sam. Yeah, Kabert, is that correct? I don't want to mispronounce it.
Yeah.
Kabert. Awesome. It's really, really cool to meet you. We were chatting a little bit before we went live, and so I guess your sixth book just came out pretty recently. Is that true?
Overcome the overwhelm with the 6-step breath process to access inner peace, something I started writing in January, just kind of came through me and published it as soon as May. So just less than a month writing process.
It's great. Congratulations. That's so is that breath like an acronym B the stand for something?
The word breath is an acronym, and basically the backstory, it's kind of a longer story, but the short version is 2023 ended up being the most challenging time in my life for a lot of different reasons. And I think a lot of your listeners will remember all of the astrological events that happened in March of 2023 and how it really shook a lot of us up. Maybe it didn't have to do with astrology, maybe it did, right? But for me, those specific life events led to this story of it being the most challenging time in my life. So I just leaned into doing the work deeper, started to study a lot of different teachers from a deeper perspective and integrate what they were teaching, and getting frustrated because there wasn't like a direct roadmap or playbook or anything like that. And the times I would come across like a roadmap, say in Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza, it's very much a roadmap, but at the same time, it was like a scavenger hunt. So I would get frustrated and just started to create something from all these different teachers that really resonated with me. And of course, was addressing limiting beliefs with my own limiting beliefs of like, why am I reinventing the wheel? And then being, oh, well, the wheel isn't working for me. So rather than do it someone else's way, let me find a way that works for me. So I started to do that, apply it for myself, noticed it was working, started working with my clients. And then I ended up going to Bali in November of 2023 for a Kundalini teacher training. And when I came back in January of 2024, that's when I started to, you mentioned you were writing a novel, or you are writing a novel. I started to alchemize
Yeah, I have.
what happened in 2023 through writing my first fiction book. And in the writing of that book, a different book wanted to come through. And that was the book that I end up writing now called Overcome the Overwhelm. So that's kind of the high level backstory. But the breath process is this technique that I was utilizing for myself during this most challenging time in my life.
So, the breath technique, is it, of course, it's laid out in the book, but is it something that, I don't know, maybe it's something you can give an example of, or a quick demonstration of the acronym, something that maybe people can get an idea of what the technique is?
It's really simple when we break it down high level. And let's just look at triggers, right? And not to define a trigger is basically anything that takes us out of the present moment, maybe anxiety of the future or depression of the past, right? Something that stimulates
Yeah,
us no longer being
stimuli.
present. What's that?
Stimuli. Yeah.
For sure. And when what are we going to do about it? And the breath process is a technique that we can use in real time because emotions, I'm sure many of your listeners are familiar with this, but emotions are energy in motion, meaning that we need to feel those energies so that they can be in motion, move through us, and not get stuck and stored in the body. Well, taking that a layer deeper, science teaches us that we have a 90-second physiological response when we experience an emotion. And this is just a side note because in spiritual and mindful and conscious communities, it is like rarely to ever talked about that our body has a 90-second physiological response. Like seriously,
That's,
in all the circles I stumbled upon that in preparing for my first TED Talk when I came across Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor's TED Talk where she taught us that. So if we put this together, emotions are energy in motion, the 90-second rule.
yeah.
We process those energies in less than 90 seconds. The next question becomes, what do we actually do in those 90 seconds? And that's where the breath process comes in. So be in breath, breathe to slow down. I'm noticing this trigger. I'm noticing that's something that is putting me in a state that, frankly, I don't want to be in, right? So let me come back to my breath. What's that?
Like hyperventilation, a little extra breathing state kind of thing?
Oh, so breathe
Or
to
you mean
slow down,
doing the opposite slows? Okay, I got you. Yeah. Okay.
right?
This,
So if we're put in a triggered state of usually going to be associated to being shifting into sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight. So it wouldn't really make as much sense to go into, say, a Wim Hof style or circular connected activation form of breath work. We want to do something that is going to slow everything down. Connect to your breath. And the three basic rules of breath work exercises are one, to inhale through the nose. It doesn't matter as much if you're inhaling or exhaling through the nose or the mouth, but inhaling through the nose will help to contribute to rest and digest. So that's number one. Number two is to allow your exhales to be longer than your inhales. And the third is belly breaths, diaphragmatic breathing. So
belly breathing.
anything along those lines that are going to help to shift you into rest and digest. Breathe, slow everything down, shift from the busy, chaotic outer world into the inner world. The second step is the R, that's relax to feel. A lot of this comes with Neville Goddard's teachings and just the word relaxation itself. Like if you're even to just go through this and you just say in your mind, relax, relax, relaxation, you're
Don't
to
look.
feel it, right? What's that?
Yeah. It almost makes your eyes heavy when you really think about it and say it with intent and think about what relax really means. The body almost kind of jumps right into it. Like, yeah, relax. it
So
yeah.
that's what we're doing these first two steps. It's all about slowing down. Breathe to slow down, relax to feel. The third step is energy to reveal. So basically here, if emotion, energy in motion, and I'm in a triggered state, then let me start to get curious about these energies. What is it revealing to me? Is there a story? Is there a lesson? Is there something that plays on loop? This is the shadow work side of this. This is where things start to get interesting, right? And tails into the fourth step, which is A, accept to surrender. Because most of the time what happens, especially if we feel like, oh, I have so much going on and I don't have time for this or whatever it is, we're like, no, I don't want to see that. I don't want to feel that. I don't have time for this. And it's so important to allow yourself to feel these emotions because that's what allows the energy to move through you. The reason why that we're stuck in this state of, let's use sadness, for example, over and over and over again. And then we hear something like, oh, well, our body processes in 90 seconds. How is that possible? It's because we're not actually allowing ourselves to feel that. So then the mind keeps replaying the story of the sadness, which triggers a new 90-second cycle. So that is why it's so imperative with the third and fourth steps, energy to reveal, asking questions.
No, I was just, well, yeah, I guess so. I was just thinking about it as you were saying it, and it's quite actually simple, and it makes simple in the sense that it makes very much sense the way you laid it out for, I'm a human for what I feel like would like make sense for a human, a general human being.
So
it's very, I didn't want to cut you off.
I'll check in with you to see if you had questions because I saw you moving around there. So just want to make sure everything's good.
Thought it was interesting.
So the T is transform into empowering beliefs. So I like to say by doing the shadow work, we earn the right to invoke the power of positive thinking because there's a movement of toxic positivity, which is like never entertain a negative feeling or negative thought, which I believe personally is the worst advice. And by doing so, you're lying to yourself. And that's when the body responds in dis-ease, right?
Yes. I agree with you 100%. Actually, I kind of personally feel like that's a little bit of a, I'm involved in the consciousness and spiritual kind of community. I'm at the conventions and things like that. And that's, it's not like a defined point of contention, so to speak, but it seems to be kind of an underspoken, like under the surface contention, something that not everybody seems to agree quite upon or really has a finger. We just don't talk about it a whole lot. It's interesting.
It's a subject. I think it's a massive gray zone and objective because it's easy to hear either point. One that's like never entertain a negative thought or emotion, right? And on one side, that can be what's that?
So you'll make it happen. Instant manifestation.
All the time, like when you're in dark night of the soul or when things don't feel like they're going your way, that's when I try my best to adopt a gain time mentality, being like, hey, if I'm learning about doing the work and all that, what's the point of all this learning if I'm not going to put it to use when it matters most? And I think about Michael Jordan, having grown up a basketball fan, like he used to say, of course I'm afraid, but I attack those fears, right? So this is that game time mentality being like, oh no, it's game time. But I say that with a caveat, meaning that like there's the one side that's like, yes, never entertain a negative emotion or feeling when you're really thick in it and it's time to like get up out of that hole because like you just can't at that point, right? So I can understand that argument. And then on my side where I live more is like, no, we want to feel this. The problem with the feeling, the acceptance and the surrender and the shadow work is you get stuck there. And even though you've heard a million times, everything happens for you, not to you, you can't help but just think everything to you and be stuck in victim mentality. So it is, like I said, a gray area. But when it comes to processing our emotions and working through this, I do believe it's crucial to accept, get to a point of surrender. And this is how we don't get stuck in that victim mentality. We transform that energy into empowering beliefs. This is the alchemization process. If we did not have this piece, then we'd be stuck in victim mentality. Finally, the H is habits to integrate. As a result of what I just went through and what I just experienced and what was shown to me and what I accepted and surrendered, what new actions, habits, or behaviors am I going to take as a result of this breath process that I just went through. So that is the 6-step breath process, very high level.
Very good job explaining it. And, honestly, just personal opinion, I mean, it sounds very much like an effective process, one based on just, of course, simple science, nervous system science, things like that. Kind of builds upon basic methods of breath work and such. Anyhow, a lot of it seems to have to do with intent and, where your focus is and everything like that. You're focusing on, certain emotions, energy in motion, etc. It reminds me a lot of, I don't know if you've heard of her, but her name is Antonia Harmon. She's a great friend of mine. She lives in England. She does a process called energetic cellular regeneration. And it's all kind of based along the body kind of theory that came from, originally I think it was Johann van der Kolk or something like that. And this is a book, The Body Keeps the Score. And I'm not going to get the whole thing, but it starts with, salamanders, and they can regenerate, and then they get crazy and start looking into other species who weren't known to be able to regenerate, but they were still seeing the electric imprint on, like a frog or something like that for you. And that obviously had implications. There was still something there, implications for phantom pain and things like that, even in humans. Somebody loses a limb and still experiences discomfort, pain, etc. in that limb. I mean, we do have evidence now that there is actually an electrical imprint from where that limb would have been. It is just, implications are huge, and I think in such an amazing time, we're right around in what I feel like I participate in every day is the bridging of science and spirituality. I talk to people who are fully immersed in one, fully immersed in the other, and really just all across the spectrum. And it's just such an exciting time to be alive for me, because that's my sauce. That's what I like to hear about. It's different people's opinions on those different things. So pranayama, breathwork is a major practice in my life as well. Almost every day. I mean, I meditate every day, but I do implement specific breathwork techniques. How long have you been practicing breathwork?
Breathwork is such a big term, right? Because it means something
Yeah.
different to everyone. And I like to simplify breathwork in 2 buckets, one being breathwork exercises, and then 2 being breathwork journeys. And my eyes were never really open to the term breathwork until I experienced a breathwork journey. And I'm sure many of your listeners are familiar with what a breathwork journey is, so I won't go into that. But breathwork exercises, I mean, that's just, it could be as simple as getting triggered and taking a deep breath, or it could be focusing on your breath in meditation, or maybe doing a little bit of breathwork in a yoga class. For me, when the power of our breath really clicked was, I think it was probably 2018 in a yoga class when an instructor kept cueing the breath. And I started to really be like, oh, wow, this is fascinating how I'm connecting my breath to these movements. And now I'm a yoga instructor myself, but whether it's myself or going to yoga classes, most teachers will cue the breath. There was just something different about the way this one instructor really cued the breath. And then I did a breathwork journey and then an ayahuasca ceremony. And that was all back in 2019. And I think I probably did like 20 breathwork journeys in a matter of months, like one-on-one journeys after I experienced that, because it was just like, show me everything. And a funny story on that is the business I've run from 2011 up till earlier this year. It's called Swagworks. We do branded merchandise. And after experiencing a breathwork journey and ayahuasca in 2019, made a bunch of shirts and different swag just with the word breathe on it. And then the pandemic happened a year later and everyone wanted those shirts, which was funny. But I became a breathwork practitioner, I think about 2 years ago. And I've been leading people through breathwork journeys, and I have an online community called the Breath Club as well.
Excellent. And your is the best place to find. I want to get this out there, and of course, everybody, this will be on all platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Apple, iHeart, on that, and wherever you guys listen. The podcast is everywhere. What's your website is samkabert.com. Is that the name of the website?
Kabert.com, KAB as in boy, ERT, samkabert.com.
Very cool. Yeah. I took a peek at it earlier. I kind of knew that. I just wanted you to say it. But yeah, actually, you know what? Your website's really well organized. It looks super professional. It looks very good. Everything's presented really well. So, I mean, kudos to you. It looks like you have a really strong operation going. Do you have a big team behind you, or do you do most of this stuff by yourself? How many
Question.
people?
In 2017, 2018 or so, I became known as the VA guy, like virtual assistants. And I was producing so much. People are just like, how are you able to do so much? And I was like, VAs. People would be like, what's that? I'm like, virtual assistant, yo. And yeah, so just became known as the virtual assistant guy because I have a big team of freelancers and VAs. And after I did ayahuasca, I started a podcast. I think it was like my fifth one or something called Clone Yourself. And I ran the
Okay.
podcast to over 100 episodes, and then I ended up retiring it. But in that podcast, I taught entrepreneurs how to scale their business with virtual teams and doing business coaching. Then I turned into a marketing agency. So basically, people will work with us. The company's called Wizard Teams to get anything done that they want done and just leverage our VA team. And I realized that was more effective than teaching entrepreneurs how to build their own teams because most people just want done for them. It's like super
Here's a
rare
team.
you find the person that is like, yes, teach me and I will build this on my own, you know?
Yeah, I'm somebody who is just now starting to need to outsource things, as far as like video editors and I mean, everything you just said, I didn't think you were trying to pitch me. That
Uh,
sounded really good to me. I was like, it's a good idea.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing is, like, people, it's been easier since the lockdowns and the emergence of AI. It's not really like as big of a topic and need as it was pre lockdowns and pre AI just blasted. It's totally different
Sure.
now, right? But the basic thing where entrepreneurs go wrong when hiring and working with a virtual assistant is they aren't recognizing that there's an actual human being on the other side of
Yes.
that. And I always say, if you've ever hired, trained, managed an employee before, then you'll be fine working with virtual assistants because the only thing you need to change is a mindset shift. You need to think about them as if they were employees in your
Exactly.
business. Once you do that, you're golden. And then for other people, they've never hired someone before. So that's an entirely different
Yeah.
conversation, you
It's a
know?
new process all over. That's quite a good insight, though. I mean, it's a simple mindset. It's a simple switch of the mental framework, but a little bit unnatural for folks who, aren't thinking ahead, who are in the throes of, let's say someone starts a podcast and all of a sudden it just takes off, and how things go when something takes off, things get missed, things happen, growing pains happen, etc. And that seems like a nice safeguard for people who really are looking to invest in themselves and really look like they have a brand or a product or something that they need to push. It still seems like there's much need for a service like yours. I do remember when virtual assistants were like, that was kind of a new term, and it was like, we can do that. And my ex is from the Philippines, so actually, she has family members and such. Found that a lot of them live in the Philippines, on Fiverr and things like that. So she's got a lot of family members and cousins and friends and stuff who, work in those areas. My editor actually lives not too far from where my ex partner grew up and lived in the Philippines for like 18 years. So it's kind of a small world. I love that part of globalization. No internet connection happen. I have internet. There he is. Oh, I'm there. It's a connectivity issue. It's an issue, and it showed all five or six or whatever, how many bars there is on the little antenna thing. But 5 seconds there, it's okay. Everything cuts all back. So much, and I apologize for that little glitch there. Riverside is usually very reliable every once in a while. So if see that little bit of a glitch there, but I bet Jane's gonna take right care of it, and I'm gonna see what I'm saying right now. If you do, let's try to have fun. Thank you, Sam, for not running out. I'm sorry, where did we leave off when you, I'm sorry, when we had
About your in the Philippines and yeah.
assistance? Yeah, that's definitely become a huge asset to people. I have close personal friends who have been able to scale their businesses massively due to that mutation of globalization can be argued as it being a bad thing. And yeah, there's all sorts of arguments, phenomena in the new world, but able to take things like social media and artificial intelligence that have negative connotations and negative media spins and things like that on them and use them nothing but pure altruism, pure selfish motive, nothing. I mean, amazing thing. That's really growth for me personally when I find something turned from once as a negative and turn it into a positive, because inherently I don't really believe that anything is negative or positive unless it's in reference to like our electronic charge. As far as events in life, kind of touching on that a little bit earlier, I try to sit with the feeling and assess if it was a good or a bad or what later, and I always kind of land on it's new. It's how I react. It's how I choose, or as I myself to mental framework that's a little more healthy and a little more aware and operate more discernment. Happened when I started to just really pay attention to up in my early 20s, which were meditation, breath work, and things like that. Somewhere along the way, then I just, fell off of meditating every day and fell off of reading certain books all the time and things like that. And it all just came into my life again like a tidal wave a few years back. And then 20-minute meditations became long trance states through breathwork techniques, which is amazing. I would love to attend one of your breathwork classes sometime. I know if you have another one coming up online, I'd in and see Sam in action and do some pranayama with you. Absolutely. But yeah, breathwork absolutely changed my life. I think a good year. Did that year, like I left my interior design job, which is very corporate and very system, very matrix, very etc. I mean, as an artist, but it was still very salesy. And I felt great about, not in a way that I felt like it was really helping people. I felt like I was missing out on what I for people, what I could be as a human and as the collective, a little bit of time to reflect and develop. And that development really was heavily based in uh, breath work, which was just kind of how I was guided. So, and just I props to you for actually taking those things a step further and developing, developing concepts behind them. People out there. So, yeah, absolutely. Meditation and breath work, something that you were introduced to as a child. Was that a part of your culture? Obviously in the East, the Asian cultures, India, such meditations typically introduce young, but mixed reviews, really. What was your experience?
I thought, I'm 36, so I was born in 88. And I remember loving the Ninja Turtles movies from the 90s. And I remember in college, I went to a party school and was like in top frat. We lived above the most popular bar in town, the whole thing. And it was great. It was a great time, but very much just, yeah, for a while I had to call myself a recovering bro when I got into spirituality, just to be like, hey, like I was cool once. Like that's just where I was at, right? But
Common.
sure, yeah. But that said, to answer your question, there was a guy that I knew in college that said something about meditating, and this was probably like 2009, 2010, and laughed. And I was like, what are you talking about? Because at the time I thought like meditation was like a myth, like something I saw in Ninja Turtles movie where they're meditating. I didn't actually know that people meditated, and then I started listening to personal development podcasts. Like, I can't even remember what they were back then. Maybe Tim Ferriss and different guests that he had on. And this was before Lewis Howes, like, or 2012 maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people started talking about meditation, and I was like, "Oh, wow, okay, this is a real thing." And then, the long story short, in 2018, I was speaking on stage. It was like a entrepreneurial jam where a few of us entrepreneurs had a chance to pitch a dilemma in front of three judges and a 300-person audience. And I pitched something I was struggling with, and the judges just like ripped me a new one, basically. What happened isn't important, but I got a message on Facebook, and this was probably 2018. And this guy sent me a long message. He was in the audience, and it was just like so spiritual and mindful. And I met him afterwards, and I talked with him, and his name is Charlie Johnson, amazing dude. But he became like my first meditation slash spiritual teacher. He ended up writing the foreword for my book, Soul Life Balance. But I did the transcendental meditation or program initiation, whatever you want to call it. And that was my initial like real introduction to and then I did a year later, and after that I did like a complete 180 on my whole life, and it was like, show me everything, you know.
Yeah, we do have just stuff that I'm picking up on, and I don't even know if you know this stuff about me, but before really diving head first, I didn't really dive head first. I actually dove head away from what I was doing. I just knew that wasn't it. Very entrepreneurial. Chose to work completely on commission rather than salary. I believed in myself that much. I had companies on the side, but I mean, that was my life. That's all I cared about. I was, I thought there really was a time where I thought that like my path to happiness was to just plug 120 hours away a week and just stack chips and I guess wake up one day and be 70 and retire. Like, Jesus. I think of it now and I'm like, what was your like end goal there? Nobody even does anything like that. Just for me, I'm just describing my feelings. I had to pull towards something what it was and away from something that I did know what it was. Sales or interior design or working in a corporation or working in, with a directors or with fiduciary responsibility. It wasn't any one of those individual things. It was, and it sounds kind of cliche, but it was almost, I think it was like a week or two later that I want to preface this so I'm going to mention the CE5 protocols. Time that I went into like a true transcendental meditation where I in bliss hours and goes through those protocols. For lack of a better word, I was like addicted to it. Like, oh my God, oh my God, I go in my room and I can go out back. I can go on a walks in trance it's, in a trance state or, within this DMT or ayahuasca and things like that. I mean, there's not really a time factor that we know about in this 3D world. It happened for me too. Ayahuasca, the first time you had done it, had really changed things for you. You were kind of really on point that next year or two. Is that
Yeah, so I did ayahuasca in April of 2019. Yeah.
So my first experience with anything close was actually the bufo toad, the 5-MeO stuff. Which it's a very similar experience for the next year or so. I just couldn't miss. It's really smooth. Everything that it's like the doorways in my brain are just, and I like tell people I'm in good I had at the time. I was younger, I didn't have words to describe what I was feeling, but all that, looking set quite a stage for me to experience it again in my 30s with a little more risk, with breath work and experimenting with, ritualistic plant medicine in college, wasn't quite as risky as leave a whole career to just kind of go and explore what your true self is. But it's working out for me. I mean, I'm not a millionaire or anything, but I'm happy. I'm very happy. And to me, I was having a conversation about this earlier with a friend of mine, and we were talking about what's first we said what's wealthy. And we were talking is, I think you need about $100 million, whatever assets to call yourself wealthy. Yeah, you're probably just rich. Going into numbers on rich, and I didn't try to get philosophical on it, but what just popped right out of my mouth was rich is just when you can do whatever you want, calling you and you're happy. But it kind of struck both of us like amount, it's a state of mind. I live my life and I've been very blessed because of it, but I had a day today where I got to spend time with somebody who isn't that typical ethos, and I really saw who through to them, like right to their soul, and it was just like later that stuff. I live for that stuff when another who I can see myself in, or another person who is struggling, who's anything, just has those aha moments, those little waterings of the seed, so to speak. It's me right now to feel accomplished, to feel like I'm helping, a place to showcase people like yourself who are, more organized, running breathwork classes and things like that, training future breathwork facilitators. So there's almost like a lineage there of the healing, which is great. And just a massive kudos to you. 100%. So you said you're 30. When did you start your put out your first book? You're on your sixth now. When did that first book come out?
The goal with the first book was to have it published by my 30th birthday, and I think I had it published like a week before. So that was 2018, and that one was really, really amazing, brilliant title for that book. It was Working with Virtual Assistants. That was the title with that book. And then a year and a half later is when I launched the Clone Yourself podcast. So if I would have done it again, I would have named that book Clone Yourself, obviously for brand continuity. And more interesting than working with virtual assistants. But that was the first book. I wrote my first 3 books in less than a year. I just kind of like figured out the process, and I just approached it as blogging. I was blogging weekly. I've been blogging weekly off and on for the past 8 years. And when I say off and on, I mean like where I'll take like 6 months off from. So truly off and on. But I mean, writing a book, I recently did a podcast on this with a 13-time author, and we kind of shared our thoughts on writing books. But honestly, like people a lot of times make a bigger deal than it is in terms of like how hard it is to write a book. I think after writing the book is the hard part. If you're a writer and you just approach it with is consistency like you would the gym, and you approach it with like a blog mindset of like, let me just get 500 to 2,000 words a day, and understand some days I'll get 0 words, but as long as I show up, at least I'm creating that consistency. And then the other part of it is before that stage, just doing a brain dump, like a mind map essentially, and then taking that brain dump or the mind map, then putting it to an outline. And then the final piece is just looking at it like, all right, I'm going to write about what feels true and in alignment now, as opposed to writing in chronological order. Because yes, it might make it a little bit more challenging for the editing if you're writing out of order, but it actually flows really nicely if you can write when you're inspired, as opposed to just, okay, let me just follow this formula and being totally in your masculine,
It's magic right there. I really like that. I mean, I watch that type, and I don't mean a lot of people will be like, "So you're lazy?" But I tend to really do things when I'm truly inspired. It does lines and things like that. And what I mean by that is, if I have something that I'm working on, I might not touch it for 2 weeks. But then all of a sudden, on like a Wednesday at 4 in the morning, it's like, I have a bunch of ideas for it. It's kind of like divinely inspired. I really want to dive into it and I've always been like that. Really consider it something that I kind of had to, and I'm still working on reading attachment. Always reading attachment. But the thing that I'm attached to is my intellect. I got better at over the years. And that was that was like a major point of tension for me because I had a very hard time letting go of what I was proud of as a as a human. Smart. That has so many different meanings. I mean, yeah. Did I have I fell on like standardized tests and like IQ tests and things? We're all creative. We all have value. It was something that I always just thought like I have to understand everything. If I don't, then it's wrong. Because if I don't understand it, then nobody understands it. But that to me, furthering my knowledge is into the ethereal, the paranormal. I mean, you can only really around so much in the 3D and in the typical awakening setting of exploring hidden tech and conspiracy theories and like alternate theories of wars and things like that before you angry everything all the time and higher self seek that higher state of frequency seek me was what a lot of people refer to as like a kundalini awakening. It's absolutely so profound. I couldn't. It's like unbelievable. Things have changed since then. Zero effort, not zero effort, but I would be giving. It's what I would be doing. To be doing. It's what I'm asked to do. So I really deal in tune and in alignment right now with things, even though I don't have your map of what that looks like. I'm saying this to fire. I mean, anybody that you can feel like you're right on the right path. You know exactly what you're doing, but at the same time, you don't voice it. I don't. I mean, I believe on that feeling. I'm riding on that wave right now. That's why I'm talking to Sam right now. That's why I'm doing everything I'm doing right now. So, yeah. Um, Bill endeavors. Did you grow up in the United States? I'm just kind of curious.
Gilroy, California, about 30 minutes south of Silicon Valley, and then went to school at Chico, and then moved back home and built my business up in Silicon Valley, and then I was named Silicon Valley's 40 under 40 list in 2019. That was the same time I built my business up to a 7-figure business while working less than 4 hours a day, and that's the same time I hit that numbing depression, and then ayahuasca found me, and then I changed my whole entire life. So yeah, moved to Santa Cruz.
You go to Peru for the Mama Aya ceremony, or was it something available to you in California? I know
I did it out
you
here.
two ceremonies, and one was actually in the U.S. and people are like, "What?" It was long.
There's ceremonies everywhere. Yeah.
I think people do have to be careful about I mean, there's probably some shaman out there who are met one or anything like that. I just I would always encourage people to use discernment, but discernment, you trusting God, then to be okay if you're seeking. Recommend people like you should, this. I think
Calling, and I typically tell, because I'm an integration coach, and my 5th book, it's called Psychedelic Compass. That one's all about like discerning if plant and earth medicines might be a right fit for someone, with a lot of things you should know, how to vet facilitators, journaling prompts. But the main piece of advice I give people is like, if you are approaching your medicine ceremony like you would a vacation, meaning like you're rolling up your sleeves and going onto Google and different retreat centers or whatever, you're clearly not being called. Yeah, that's all your masculine energy. Like, especially when it's your first time, like really it's undeniable when it's a calling. And in my own experience, I've found that after work with these medicines, it starts to get kind of confusing to work with your intuition and your discernment to kind of delineate the difference between the calls, because they can be a little bit more subtle. And then even for me, I think I saw that you're homies with Ryan Sprague in 2000. 22, we did a podcast on his show called This One Time on Psychedelics, and I shared a story that with a dark shaman in Costa Rica, and yeah, that time I really shared that one publicly, and we went deep on it. But basically, like, you know, that is so important that because it is the Wild West, and there could and there are facilitators that are in integrity from like a 3D grounded approach, but they're working with some energies that they're not aware of, and that's almost
They
like
don't.
psychic takeovers. Yeah, maybe they do. Maybe they're even of the Shipibo lineage. I mean, I've seen that. And what are they working with, right? And that's kind of commonly spoke about in these circles. So, number one being, if you're at all interested plant and earth medicines, like obviously approach it from a grounded perspective, but really like if you're going about it like you vacation and comparing rates and all that analytical mind stuff, like that's not a calling, you know?
It is. That's why they call it mama. Mother. It is it's a divinely feminine, and I would say inherently got aspects of both. But I feel like going through that is a divinely perceived wrong by some audiences, but it's definitely a divine feminine act to go that purge and to go through that. How I kind of describe it, to go through that reckoning of to explain. I mean, say reckoning of self, but I don't think that does it justice. Like there's a lot more going on. Just, I speak a little bit carefully on it because again, I don't want to be the guy that's recommending everybody do ayahuasca. Uh, Everybody can benefit from it if in the right headspace and everything, just as you said. But, do something.
Over 1,000 people at this point that work with the toad medicine. I'm very familiar with that one, help a lot of people prepare and integrate, and had many of my own journeys, one just a week and a half ago with the toad. And, I see a lot of people working with the toad because it's much more accessible. And with ayahuasca,
Trip.
also someone that has experienced a lot of trauma in their, with ayahuasca, you'll have to relive that experience over and over again in different sorts of ways until you accept it. One of the reasons why I love breathwork and breathwork journeys so much is because of my connection with Bufo. I've been with that medicine for a long time now with an established facilitator that's very well known in the community. And with Bufo, like most of the time, you're not going to have to relive that traumatic experience. The body will release it on its own. And that is something that really is appealing to a lot of people because it to say the least, to re-experience the trauma in ayahuasca.
When you're on the ride too. I mean, there's no off. There's no that you're there. UFO. I mean, let's a scenario. Somebody just negative reaction. I mean, a little bit of time to that person, but ultimately, I've seen it happen, in weird settings or recreational type settings.
Yeah, for sure. And what happens a lot with the toad is people start to go on a downward spiral in the integration, and then they start to blame the medicine as a result of it. And a lot of the people I work with, like one-on-one or in group settings, are working with the toad or ayahuasca or mushrooms or maybe nothing at all. But this breath process that we went over because we can expand out, and instead of working on in the moment, we can look from a side view and be like, okay, so where are you in these 6 steps? Are you stuck in that resistance? Because that's typically what's happened. People are because if you're someone who experiences a lot of depressive type symptoms or maybe anxiety or rage, whatever it is, it's case that intensifies in the integration of Bufo specifically. So then that's when people start to get in that victim mentality, things are happening to me, and blame this thing rather than look at themselves and ask, what is this energy revealing to me? And get to the point of
that's something that
acceptance
you would
and
have a unique
surrender.
insight into because I mean, you're not facilitating the Bufo ceremonies, but you're
Because it's
facilitating
a
them, or you
public,
just attend a lot
yeah,
of them with
uh,
your
public podcast. So yeah, I don't, yeah, I don't,
mission, but you've participated in a fair bit. So you've got a fair, that's what I was just clarifying, is Sam's got a fair bit of
put
leeway
it
to
for
speak.
being a podcast. Yeah, exactly.
Talk to a lot of people who have had the experience with the same medicine, so you can kind of get like sample spaces every time you go for a healing for yourself. They're learning, and what other people are says not equally as, I mean, maybe not equally as valuable, but it's also very valuable.
You mentioned with Kundalini, like, I mean, this is more of a theory because who's to say this is what is actually happening? But after doing such a deep dive of Kundalini, to me, what I feel like Bufo is doing is it's giving you a Kundalini awakening. And if we look at the lower three chakras, we can see those challenges are, and it's bypassing earning the right to receive that Kundalini awakening. And I see this all the time with people working with Bufo specifically. If they're not already doing the work, their integration is so much more challenging, right? Because they haven't actually they haven't earned the right to get there. So now they need to backtrack. And then that's where we need to catch up and be like, okay, so what? And I don't necessarily work with the energy centers or the chakras specifically. I work with my process. But if we to look at each of the energy centers and what they represent and see where those challenges are, that's typically what's happening because Bufo is, I love the, what is the word I'm looking for? The story, I guess you could say, the myth of how Shiva is shocked working her way up to meet her lover Shiva with Kundalini. And that's why I do a lot of root lock breathing, or some people will call it Kriya pranayama, or, anything at all to cleanse the nadis to make a clear path. And that can be such a great way to prep and to integrate for medicine ceremonies.
So I'm just asking, and I'm kind of going a little off topic, but is that in relation to is that related to like what people refer to as tantra and things like that? Kundalini tantra, are those kind of they similar practices? Or do they come from similar? Or are they completely different? Sam, you're a champion. Apparently, this hotel that I'm at has given me two connectivity issues, but I will say that they're very smooth. It's Riverside FM. Riverside FM is I love the program. Not paid sponsorship or anything. I just really love the program. It really does work.
I say I do a lot of podcasts. I've been probably a guest on like 30 this year. And the ones in Riverside, like more often than not, there's an issue.
As
And
a
I run
guest,
mine on, yeah, I run mine on Zoom. Never any issues when it's on mine or when I'm on someone else's. But anytime I'm on a podcast that's on Riverside, it's like 30 to 50% of them, there's some sort of issue.
okay, yeah. So I mean, this is probably as far as recordings go, it's probably episode 32, 33, somewhere in that arena. And the first 25, not a single smidge of an issue. Not anywhere. Yeah, a couple weeks. There's actually been like some changes in Riverside that I personally noticed, like from the hosting side. And, I've noticed right from my team, the producer side. And then, oh, here we are, little connections, little connection things.
Get it. I mean, man, I started podcasting on January 17th of 2017. I've done easily over 1,000 podcasts at this point. And back then, trying to find a podcast platform was
Service.
so hard. And like now, Zoom is just so good. I never
Right.
understand why people use Riverside because it's like Zoom has everything you need and it's so reliable. But,
I guess it's probably, if I had to guess, it's probably more for the editing side of things more than the hosting and streaming side of things. Although I'm not like, I don't know, I don't do the editing and things like that. So
that's what I've heard. It's for the post-production, but it's like,
yeah.
okay, so if you do that on your own, I get that. But if you're working with an editor, like, I don't know. Whatever. That's just my experience with Riverside. So yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not someone to sit here and like defend a program that I use like just because
All
it was
good.
always really amazing. It's done great for us. I don't have anything terrible to say about it, but I am hearing a little bit more from guests here and there where there's a little thing, nothing crazy major, like horrible has happened, but still, nobody wants connectivity issues and wondering if the screen's going to come back up and things like that. I mean, it's a little nerve wracking.
We're here now.
But we're here.
You want to wrap it up, or what are you feeling?
However you're feeling, Sam. I guess if you want to just take a couple more little quick fun ones, maybe for clips and stuff like that. There's a couple questions I'd like to ask people, but you kind of already touched on a few of them, like books and things like that. If you had to recommend a couple books to people right now, what are some books that really changed your life that people maybe haven't heard of, maybe ones that people have, you can certainly reference Think and Grow Rich
Book
or something
by
like that.
David Bayer.
Are
Have you
there a
heard
couple
of
books that
David?
you would
It
really
might be
recommend
David
to
Bayer,
say, yep,
Bayer.
coming up?
Have you heard of him?
Really helping? Something I like to ask everybody.
Lost connection again.
Riverside, what are you doing? Well, guys, Riverside is just giving me and Sam quite a shellacking today. But the show's go. We're professionals. And we're not gonna go connectivity get us down. Oh my gosh. So everybody, Sam has been such a great guest today with some natural avian technicality issues. I apologize. I'm the host. It's on me. I should know if stuff's gonna happen like that. That's I genuinely apologize to Sam mostly and our audience, of course. Sam, I know we were talking about wrapping up there. I hope you can hear me right now. Sorry about that. Truthfully, I'm seeing a full connection, but we're using Riverside FM right now, not Zoom. It's a different streaming platform. It's something Jane and I have used the whole show, but platforms change and little glitches happen. Not making excuses. I'm just being honest. Mostly, I'm apologizing to Mr. Cabert here because we did miss a little bit of time due to connectivity. I really apologize for that, Sam.
Tech happens, right? Not a big deal.
Yeah,
So you're
absolutely.
talking about books. Sort of
You heard
David
me.
Bayer.
Yeah, it's his name. What's the one that you would recommend?
Incredible. I love his work. I just finished his book, A Changed Mind, and that book is incredible. My one don't love about it is like you're clearly going through a funnel and it gives you like enough, again, just like how I mentioned breaking the habit of being yourself, where like you can take it and make it your own. But I often really just give it all, and that's what I'm doing with Overcome the Overwhelm. It's
Yeah.
like, here it is, it's of course a funnel if you want to work with me, but like that is everything right there. Other than that, that's the most recent book I read that I absolutely loved. I think the Yamas and Niyamas by Deborah Adele is a book that if everyone read, it would change the entire world. And it's about the first two limbs of yoga.
Wow.
Little book as well. Obviously,
That sounds interesting. That sounds interesting to me.
great. Really love that. Sacred Contracts by Carolyn Mace. That's one I come back to again and again. Or just a few that come off the top of my head that might be a little bit different to your listeners.
Great answers. I mean, I'm one who believes people should read a little bit more. It is wrong with watching podcasts and documentaries and whatever else, but something to be said for reading a good old fashioned piece of literature, or just a case study or whatever it may be. Reading's good. And yeah, just one other thing I was curious. I wanted to ask you, and I know we're getting up on time here, but how did you get into the TEDx? What was your first, what were you first speaking on? Was it really the entrepreneurial side of things, more the business side of things when you got into TEDx speaking, and now you've kind of transitioned into your role now? Speaking.
I got into speaking 2.5 years ago. My message is soul life balance. My new keynote, in addition to soul life balance, is overcoming overwhelm. It complements the book, Overcome the Overwhelm.
Very cool.
Yeah, TEDx, that one's on soul life balance and how work life balance is a myth, health, all the things. Yeah. And that one, it was just applying, until I got accepted, really. So, yeah.
So I actually had my first TEDx talk in February. It's at an event that I had thrown I helped throw. It's a charity event. We throw myself and two other, one physician and one PhD professor from Leo's University here in the Tampa area. Myself and the Dr. Golds, I call them. They're both Dr. Gold. Holistic Health Summit. This year it's February 1st, 2025. And it's gotten bigger each year. The charity funds have gotten bigger each year. The number of speakers, and this year we've got the TEDx label. A little for a few more sponsors, more speakers than we've ever had, and we're doing it in that TEDx style form, which is going to be really cool. I'm really interested, excited because it's just been a little bit of a different event in the past. I mean, I got to be honest. I think I'm the only person on that list that's not a doctor or a player from the Buccaneers or something like that, So it's a pretty esteemed list of speakers, and my speech is going to be lifetime longevity. That's the theme of the event. I've gone through a really radical physical transformation recently due to some very basic mindset and life change. It's very simple. Actually, I made a story 2 days ago that said, I got to do this because I hit of my weight where I was at my heaviest about 3 years ago. That felt pretty crazy to think, well, size. This stuff has had benefits for me, like just learning. I don't even see it like learn it and apply it. I learn things out of curiosity, and so I can help other people. And then it happens to me as a byproduct. So it really is that full explanation of externalization, the internal state. That's really what I try to do. So I know we're here at time. We've had tech issues. Sam, I would love to do like a live stream with you. Maybe pick a topic sometime. We'll talk privately, of course, but to collaborate again and dive deep into something.
Yeah, let's do a breathwork session or something like that.
Yeah, a breathwork session, something like that. Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be really cool. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you've got to go. I'm sure you've got to probably calls or whatever you've got going on. We've all got lives, etc. So I'm so thankful for the time that you did have to spend with me today, given the Riverside FM fun.
Tyler, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure, and keep up the great work, brother. And thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And you surely keep us posted on anything you've got coming up. Myself and Jay, and anybody that comes on the show and, collaborates with us in way, shape, or form, we really like to promote, anything that we think is positive. So just stay in touch, and that's kind of yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler.
All right. Well, we will talk soon, sir. Thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to a breathwork session with you. That'd be cool. Absolutely.
Cool.
All right. Yeah. Well, take care, Sam. That was another episode of the Immersive Podcast, everybody. And, we power through. The show must go on. Some of these episodes are 3 hours long. Some of them are 30 minutes. Most of them are about an hour. And then some of them have little tech glitches. But one thing remains true. We're immersing ourselves in concepts the best we can. We're talking to people who are living examples of pure magic and people who are embodying the principles of the new earth, quote unquote, whatever you want to call it. People who are taking that walk through that doorway, visualizing that future, and do it. Sam's doing it. Sam is truly doing his thing. I have a lot of respect for him. We haven't known each other very long. I just want to be open with people. What I've learned from his work recently, knowing that we had some collaboration coming up, I would highly recommend you check out his Instagram, his website, and personally going to check out some of the books. I haven't gotten to that yet, but website, Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff. He's got great stuff up. So please check it out. Shout out to you, Jane, best producer in the game. Everybody, have a great night. Tyler out. Immersive Podcast in the books.